A recent study has shed some light on the arguments that the mental health of women is more at risk with those who have an abortion as compared to women in pregnancy and childbirth. Joining us to shed some light on this is Mike Schouten. He is the Executive Director of ARPA Canada, the Association for Reformed Political Action. Mike, it's great to have you back with us.
It's good to be here.
Now, this study was done by the University of Montreal Hospital Research Centre, the University of Sherbrooke, and McGill University. So this is quite an extensive study here. There have also been other studies that had similar results, but this study looked at a huge number of individuals. Can you just talk about the scope of this study?
For sure, yeah. Like you said, other studies have been done in other areas of the world. For example, the Netherlands had a study with about 325 cases, 325 women that they tracked. Finland, they did a study that was a little bit larger, about 12,000. There was a study out of Denmark that had about 75,000. But this one that you just referenced out of Quebec, it analyzed over 1.2 million pregnancies.
Wow.
Over like a 17-year period from 2006 all the way to 2022.
So what a big study here. And what did the study find out about the mental health of women undergoing abortion as compared to women giving birth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of those, over 1.2 million pregnancies, they tracked approximately 28,000 women who had an abortion, and then just over 1.2 million women who carried their child to term. And they found that of the women who had had an abortion, they had mental health related hospitalizations actually 2.5 times higher than women who kept their child during that period of time that they followed these women after either the abortion or the child was delivered.
So those hospitalized for mental health, I want to talk about that a little bit, because I'm curious if this focused only on things like depression, or did it encompass like a much broader scope of mental health issues? And I'm curious if there was like any significant data to show that some of these women were hospitalized even before they got pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Certainly not that they were hospitalized before they got pregnant, but after they were pregnant, and after they either gave birth to the child or after that they procured the abortion. The higher rates for things like, you're right, mental health conditions, but the study dug a bit deeper, and it showed that there were women who were simply depressed, women who had anxiety, but then it progressed to things like eating disorders, psychosis, personality disorders. So there's a whole host of mental conditions that these women were found to be hospitalized for following the abortion that had been procured.
Did it show like what aggravating factors cause these women to be hospitalized other than being pregnant or considering an abortion?
Yeah, so the study didn't dig into the exact reasons. It just tracked, like I said, the women who had an abortion, women who carried their child to term. But I think the deduction that's made from a study like this is that act of becoming pregnant, being with child, and then intentionally ending the life of that child has an impact on women. So this very much debunks the pro-choice narrative that reproductive choice, so-called, is good for women. And when they decide that's going to be good for them and everything's going to turn out well, that there is a profoundly negative impact on a woman's mental capacity, on her mental health, after she procures an abortion. So yeah, we're thankful for a study like this that essentially supports what the pro-life movement here in Canada especially has been saying for a long time, that we don't do this work because we're anti-women or anti-choice. We do this work because we care for women. And just simply suggesting that they have an abortion and end the pregnancy in that manner is not only obviously not caring for the preborn child, it's also not taking into account the negative impacts on their mental health in the years following.
Right now the medical side of mental health aside, I want to know, do we know why there is a higher rate of mental health issues for women having abortions?
Again, the deduction is that it's because they had the abortion, because they ended their pregnancy prematurely. So the study didn't dig necessarily into all the rationale aside from
Okay.
those two differences. That was the test essentially as they followed these women.
Did the age of the women play into the results?
No, interestingly, the age, the level of income, household income, university versus non-university status didn't really factor into it. This is not a study that shows that, oh, women who don't have, for example, the financial supports, therefore that's why they had the mental health challenges that they experienced. Not at all. It simply, it was right across ages, right across the various levels of, like I said, financial support and stability that were found in the woman's life.
Now let's switch gears for a moment, because I understand the BC legislature actually brought your organization's name up for a vote to condemn your viewpoint. It seems a little odd to happen in a society that has laws to protect freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of conscience, and the like. Can you explain what took place?
Yeah, you're right. We were a little bit surprised by this. This happened a couple of weeks ago, right at the start of the fall sitting of the BC legislature. The
Mm-hmm.
background to it is that earlier this year in April, we had a reception at the BC legislature, similar to a lot of organizations would have. A lot of different industries in Canada would have receptions for meet and greet, the relationship building stuff that occurs within legislative buildings right across the country. At that time, we understood through the media that the NDP were not happy that we had been welcomed to the BC legislature just by very fact that we are Christian, and they didn't agree with Christians and where we stand on things like abortion, gender transition surgeries, and so on. And then the story kind of died. We didn't hear anything of it until, the House came back for its fall sitting, and the very first order of business that the NDP, the governing party here in BC, put forward was a motion, and I can quote it. The motion is that this House condemns the intolerant views of the Association for Reform Political Action, including its harmful discrimination against transgender people, its belief that homosexuality is immoral, and its explicit policy goal of restricting abortion access in British Columbia. They put forward that motion and demanded a vote from all the MLAs in the House.
So you mentioned the word intolerant. I also understand the term hateful was used to describe the organization ARPA. Any thoughts on what the point was for having a vote on this motion? You mentioned the NDP not agreeing with your views, that you're a Christian organization. Is that really going to change anything?
We don't think so it doesn't change anything policy-wise or anything related to access to the BC Legislative Assembly. We're still granted access. They can't ban us from that facility or from meeting with MLAs and other government bureaucrats there. Certainly doesn't change anything there. I think what it does, though, is it signals a couple of things. One is the state of politics in our country. In BC, the NDP is under a lot of criticism for its mismanagement of the economy in our province, especially. And this was a distraction. We see it as a distraction tactic from them to just put the attention on the other party in the House at that time. But we also think that the NDP, in relation to what I referenced earlier, that reception that we had at the beginning of this year or in the springtime, they wanted to capitalize on that by trying to expose some fractions within the BC Conservative Party, which is the official opposition here. Because their sense was that the BC Conservatives are not all on the same page with our views, ARPA Canada's views, and they wanted to vote so that they could kind of draw divisions within that party. And then I think the other factor that we need to recognize is that as the truth, capital T truth, becomes more prevalent in our society and is being spoken more boldly by especially young people in Canada, the opposition, and I mean here in a spiritual warfare sense of the word, Satan, does not like that and is going to find whatever mechanism he can to try to censor and silence the truth from being spoken, from being shared in the public realm, including in political legislatures across our country. So I think those are a number of thoughts I have as far as what's going on here. But yeah, to your question of does it change anything, in reality, it doesn't change anything. Instead, it emboldens us even more that the work we're doing is having an impact, so much so that people are going to go to these kind of lengths to try to censor and silence that truth.
Do you have any updates on where Canada is at with MAID, otherwise known as medical assistance in dying? Are you hearing anything about where politicians are leaning as to whether mental illness as the sole reason for MAID will be allowed?
Yeah, so on that file, there definitely has been some developments. Just for your viewers, we are living in a context where, as of March 2027, MAID euthanasia will be expanded to people with mental illness as the sole underlying condition, whereby they can request and receive MAID. Right now, there's a private members bill that has been put forward by an MP from British Columbia, Tamara Jansen. She has put forward a private members bill that would essentially neutralize that expansion, and it would end it. It would stop the slide down the slippery slope. It's called Bill C-218. You can visit our ARPA Canada's website, Care Not Kill, which is a website dedicated to that bill and to advancing protections for Canadians from euthanasia, from MAID. So that's a really healthy development we see, and one that we're getting behind fully and encouraging everyone to support and communicate that to their members of parliament that they ought to support it. We expect a vote on that bill at some point in the spring of 2026, probably the February-March timeframe.
Any final thoughts on what viewers can do to influence politicians and those around us?
Yeah, I think connected with what we were just talking about that reception that we had and relationship building, I think that's something that all of us can do. And viewers, some of them are very keen on this. They're doing it, but a lot of people think that there's no point. There's no point in reaching out to politicians. It's not going to make a difference. But the reality is it does, and relationships matter, and trust is built from those relationships. So just I want to encourage everybody to take a moment to either email or call your member of parliament. And even if you haven't talked to them before, introduce yourself, give them a word of encouragement, start to build that relationship so that when bills like this are put forward, we have a foundation from which we can then launch into either our support for said piece of legislation or our opposition to it and give the rationale as to why.
Mike Schouten is the Executive Director of ARPA. Mike, thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure.
I'm Naveen Day on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks for watching.